All right, so I think we have volume now.
Are we ready? Okay, are we going?
Yep.
Okay.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm fine. What picture are we looking
I don't know.
at? Hi, come on in. Come on in.
How are you?
Very well. Thanks for coming.
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. Are we on?
Yep, we're live.
Are you seeing a picture somewhere?
In
the broadcast?
Yeah, well, we have this
I
going.
see. Okay. So.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a delay.
Alrighty. Okay. Well, thanks for coming, folks.
We have volume now.
There we go. I hear it now.
Yep.
All right. Good. There's a 30-second or 35-second delay between when we say something and it actually comes out on YouTube or on the computer somewhere. So when you're monitoring it, you're always like 8 sentences behind the conversation, so it makes it a little bit more challenging.
So if you see us getting confused, that's why.
That's the reason for that. In any event, thanks for coming. My name's Dave, Dave Chomitz. I'm a real estate broker for Royal LePage, and my partner.
Addy Saeed. I'm a real estate agent out of this office in Max Active.
And together we've for the last, this is our third year now doing RE-Mark TO, which is real estate started off as real estate marketing, Toronto, and it was a meetup group, and we focus on almost anything to do with real estate sales or really skills for any kind of sales and marketing. We spent 2015 doing a lot of social media stuff. We have typically we'd have speakers come in. This is our first one of 2018, though, in a new setup, so we didn't want to go through this rigmarole with a lot of experts standing around watching us fumble around. So we're doing this one together, and then but every month we focus on a different part of what real estate marketing is all about. Real estate sales and marketing is all about, and mortgage sales and marketing, or carpet sales and marketing, because they're all transferable skills.
Yep.
And we used to do it as a PowerPoint presentation, but we thought because the number of people who show up is dwindling. There's less people come out, but there's a lot more people watching online. So putting a PowerPoint presentation online doesn't really play too well. So we thought we'd try and change the format this year and try to just have it more conversational as opposed to presentational, and see where that's going to go. It's our goal is to have it once a month, and it's really nice to have people here. And if you want to ask a question, if you've got a comment to make on anything we're saying, please just jump right in. Okay, it's really important you do that, and that organic chemistry is always nice too, rather than just sitting. We thought we might just be sitting here together, and as nice as that would be, it's better when there's people in the room. So, Addy, I'm going to just move my camera around. Like the side of my head showing, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move my camera over to this corner.
Sure.
All right, and then you take the here.
Yeah. Well, basically, our intention over here is to. This is a 6-part series we've been working on. So this is part 4 of the 6-part series. The intention, like the topic that we've been talking about is intentional communication. So, what is intentional communication? Basically, it's talking to people when you're having a conversation, and having knowing what the outcome it is that you're looking for. And what it does, if you have that intention predefined for yourself, whenever you're having a conversation with anybody, you are. You can measure that conversation and see if it was a worthwhile conversation. If it wasn't worthwhile, were you able to get the value that you were looking for from that conversation? And it also, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're always looking for something when we're having a conversation. What it means is that whenever we're having a conversation, there's a predefined result that we have in mind, and we want to see if we can achieve that. Now, Dave, a simple result would be what that you'd be looking for when you're having a simple conversation? Let's say.
Well, the idea is that as salespeople, we want to we don't talk by accident. So earlier, I don't know who it was. I was focused over here, but someone at the table said, "How's business?" Right? And we get asked that question all the time: "How's business?" or "How's the market?" But when people ask that question, whoever it was that asked that question, you probably weren't saying like. Or when we get asked that question by the public, you have to ask yourself, are they asking me how's the market, or are they asking me what's the value of their house? Or is their house saleable? Or are our properties hot in their neighborhood, kind of thing, right? So when people oftentimes people speak to you, what they're saying, what the words they're using, you can't take them literally. And it's absolutely okay as a salesperson to assume that you shouldn't take it literally. So when someone says to you, how's the market? You don't say like, you could say, oh, it's really busy, or January, so it's really slow right now, or whatever. Or you could turn it around and say, well, it all depends on where you live. Right now, there's demand in certain neighborhoods, you know, and then turn that into either whatever your intention is. If your intention was to try and get their names and emails so you could put them into a database, you might offer them a newsletter subscription. If your intention was to try and get them to come to an open house because you have one around the corner, you could tell them about that, you know. But a simple sentence like "how's the market" can turn into a whole conversation that has nothing to do with the general idea of how's the market. And that's the point of intentional conversation. So often as when we start to relax and we slip into a mode where we just answer the question. Oh, it's really busy. Oh, it's really slow. You know, and then you start talking about your business as opposed to,
I love that, the humble brag.
yeah, we really
Oh,
do,
I'm
yeah.
so busy right now.
Yeah, and it's really important to be focused all the time when you're talking to folks, because those openings are the opportunity to start building some rapport and creating a relationship. And so oftentimes we just let those opportunities slip through our fingers because we answer their question the way, the literal way that they asked it, and that wasn't what they wanted to know at all.
So we talked about January and February being slow months, and this is something you and I were talking earlier today as to what we can do during these slow months. So I think one of the big tips that we would have for our listeners out there and anybody that is in real estate or have a business, to use the opportunity of taking January and February and calling them like house cleaning, basically, housekeeping months. So you could check up on your licenses and see if you have any courses that are coming up. You have your taxes that are due now, another couple of months, and we're going to have our taxes due, so we can work on our finances, getting those in order. Do a review of your marketing, what has worked, what hasn't worked in the past, the red light, green light idea. So if something hasn't been making you money, take a look through it and see how you can change it to make money. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. That's what we're looking to do. Reviewing your ongoing training requirements, basically. If you have any licenses that are coming due, update your agreement library. This is something that you brought up. I don't usually see that much.
Well, sure, because we're all realtors, and in January 1, 2018, we've got new forms we're supposed to be using, right? So I don't know how everyone does their business differently, but I download all the forms onto my computer, so that if I'm ever, because I don't always have access to Wi-Fi where I'm in a more rural neighborhood, so I've got all the forms on my computer. But January 1st every year I've got to get rid of all my old forms, because by law we're supposed to be using current forms, right? So to the 2018 agreement of purchase and sale has changed marginally. All the forms have changed just a little bit, so it's a great opportunity or a great time to make sure you got those things where you need them, so that when you get busy in March or April, that you're all set to go. Another thing that I like to do is, and the newer agents remember this, all year long there's going to be things that come along that you think are really neat. Maybe you'll go to a convention, or you'll go to a sales seminar, or you'll hear a speaker, or you'll just get an idea when you're driving down the road. And you go, oh, that's a great marketing thing. That's something I should like to do. And you just kind of put it in the back burner.
What about seminars that you go to and you have all these piles of paper there?
Sure, you go to a seminar, you get a bunch of handouts, you go, oh, there's some nugget, or even the TREB trade show, right? You go to the TREB trade show, there's lots of really good stuff to see there, but it's always a very busy time in the market. So you come home and you got a whole bunch of little things that you think are nuggets that could make you a bunch of money if you could just take the time to build a program around them, or implement them. And there's never time. There's never time in July, there's never time in August, but there's lots of time in December, January. And every year, I'll have a projects that I'll find, and I'll just tuck them away in a little plastic bag beside my desk. And then the first week of December, I'll start rooting through the bag to look for the next thing I want to try. And just last week, when I was in to see Addy, I stopped at a printer. I picked up 2,000 door hangers, like a new door hanger campaign my team's doing. And I took the first week of January and designed them and had them printed and put them up. And we probably won't open the box until maybe May, but it's there. It's set to go. And so then last May, I thought, geez, I should have some door hangers. This is a great time because the market's transitioning. I should have some door hangers for this thing. And I didn't. This year, I've got them, and they're just sitting in a box. And when the market comes, if it's May, if it's June, we'll have our marketing materials all set to go. 1,000 of them to go, just hang on doors that send the message that we want to send. Now, that's the fishing part of real estate, right? Or sales, because it was like the 2,000 hangers were $531. Maybe I won't make any money on that, but I've got a hunch that I believe that this is a good worm to have on the hook. And so when the market's just right, I'll have the marketing piece I want for that particular instance, and my team will go out and just hang them on 2,000 doors and see what happens. And this is the time of year when you can do those kinds of things. So all year long, pay attention to the things you can't get done and make a list somewhere. because our business goes through peaks and valleys, and it's in the valleys, it's awfully easy to say, well, I'm just going to watch TV today, or I'm going to wash my car, or I'm going to sleep in. But with the hours that we dedicate to work, we can still be very productive. We should be very productive, even though we're not showing houses or listing houses or writing contracts. There's still lots to do otherwise.
Well, you still have your other admin stuff that usually gets lacking, so you could work on those things. And another big thing that I like is these December, like we ran our first, in our brokerage over here, ran the first business planning. Our first of the year was back in November last year, and we just did another one last week again. So we went through all the business planning, different criteria that you have to look at, and budgeting for your year for our brokerage. I think that's another good one that you should be looking at in this slow time. Also, one more thing, like, how many of you likes to take vacations? Anybody? I love taking vacations. So one of the best times to set those times apart are right now. So when you're doing your time management planning, set up your times when you want to take vacations, and you can have a plan for the whole year around it. And at the very end, like any new and innovative marketing ideas, any productivity initiatives, these are the times that you want to be taking a look at that and getting those all into play.
Another, if I may, Addy, another really significant thing to do is this is a great time of year to do database housekeeping. I know some people, Addy is really anal about his database, and he keeps it up. He's got stuff in it all the time. He's working on it all the time. I'm not like that, and I'm not real good at putting clients in and updating things and doing that kind of stuff. I've got two CRMs, and they'll tell me when it's someone's birthday or when there's the anniversary of their sale, which is very helpful. But this is the time of year when it's possible to go through, when you should take a little time to go through your database and get rid of the people that aren't maybe producing the results that you want, to make sure that you've updated it, because this is when your office will be giving you the trade records with all the sales that you did last year kind of thing, and it'll have their names and addresses, it'll have the closing date. There's a lot of data on those trade record sheets that you can just plug right into a database. You should be doing it when you sell the house, but not all of us are that religious about it, and it's a great time of year to do that, because that's time that you can spend.
All right. Anything you've been reading or listening to that you want to talk about?
There's something else. Now, we've discovered some. I've known it for a long time, and there's some things that we don't talk about. This is one of the ones that we just discovered this last week and a half. And I was telling the folks earlier, I don't have a television in my house. We don't have a TV. We haven't had one for 6 years, and I don't listen to the radio when in the car when I drive. And I drive a lot. I spend a lot of time in my vehicle. And about 8-9 years ago, I read a sales book by Zig Ziglar, who's an old-style salesperson, and a lot of the new, like he didn't have computers and stuff, but the skills that he teaches are as relevant today as they were in the 60s and 70s when he wrote the books. They're unbelievably useful. One of the things that he talked about, though, was what he called automobile university. And like in those days, you had like a tape deck, and you'd buy a book on tape, and you'd listen to it as you were driving. And back then, the statistics were that Americans spent enough time parked at red lights when they were commuting that they could get a university credit in their car that year, kind of thing, And I thought that makes a lot of sense. So I started buying CDs, and now you use.
I use Audible.
Okay, yeah, sure. Audible, which is online.
Yeah,
right?
It's an app. You get a subscription for it. It's a really, really good app. I love it because for $15 to $20 a month, you get a book every month. And last month I was listening to Robert Cialdini's Influence, and it's a it's a top-selling book. It's all about anybody that is if you're a marketer and you need to know how to market to people, it's a really, really good book. And it talks about how to place your message, for example. A simple example I was giving you is, I ask you a simple question. So how many concerts do you go to?
Are you a good-looking woman?
That's
you just about three. Sorry. Three.
So if you're a person, you go out and you what? Like if you go to concerts, for example, let's say somebody wants to sell you a concert, like a subscription for a concert. How would they do that? Now there are companies out there that set this up. What they do is they would target single men, right? And then they would send an attractive girl over there. And the girl would start by saying, hey, are you a helpful person? So, of course, everybody's going to say, yeah, I'm a helpful person. Then they say, well, would you mind taking a survey for me? Sure. And then when they would ask the question, they would be like, well, how many concerts do you go to? Oh, I go to 3 to 4 a month. Well, they're going to boast now, right? Because It's the dynamic. It's the auto response we have. And then, well, how many times do you go out to eat food? How many times do you do this? So the guy is always going to answer and boast himself, because there's an auto response in the back of men's head. And then she will put the pitch on. She will say, well, if you're doing all of this, if you're spending all this money, why don't you get a subscription for $120, and then you can save $300 per year on going through all of these expenses. That's when you know that you got caught, right? It's the feeling. I call it the gut feeling, the gut-wrenching feeling you get that, geez, I got caught, because you have to stay congruent with what you have just made a statement, and you have to buy now. You're buying something where you didn't want to buy. So this is an almost unethical way of making a sale. But these are all because there's an auto mechanism that is in the back of our head. And Influence is a book that brought light to that. It was written more than 10 years ago, and now they actually have a newer book, Persuasion, which is also another amazing book that I'm going to be listening to. It's on my list, a list of books to listen to. So if you do any type of marketing, great book to listen to, great book to have. I would recommend getting an Audible subscription. Again, I don't get paid by them. I just love the product because I use it every single day.
What does it cost, Addy?
It costs me $15 a month.
$15.
$15 a month, and what I do is I go and I look for books that are more than $50 a month, so I get my money's worth. So you look for books that are $30, $35, and you get them for 1 credit. And then 1 credit is good for a month. So you get a credit a month, so you can have a book cycled every month.
Sure.
So I've had it for about 1.5 years now. I think I have about 18, 19 books in there. And what I do is I just go out there and I look at the top books. Like, I look for people that have made recommendations on books. And I look for people that I follow. Like, Rick is a really good guy. He reads a lot of books, so he would make recommendations. So I would take his recommendations and I would buy them from there.
It's good. There's a statistic that less than 4% of adult North Americans read more than 1 book a year. And but as you move up the pay scale, there's more and more and more of them read. And EOs of large companies are known to read between 50 and 60 books a year.
Yep.
And they're not novels, they're not Harlequin romances, they're reading books that are going to improve them. And it's absolutely amazing what's out there to read if you choose to read. I'm not a good reader, so I listen, and I buy CDs, things that I put them on this old iPod, and I carry it with me everywhere, and I just listen in between things and when I'm doing stuff. And it's there's 2 parts to that. One part is that it's neat to learn new stuff or hear new stuff. But the second part of it is it's very reinforcing to what you already know. It's nice to be reminded about stuff you already know. And in fact, right now I'm listening to some CDs that I got in 2014 from a real estate company in Colorado, and their EO was explaining the system that they use and the philosophy that they have, and it's really nice to hear that over again, even though it's something I already know. I've known it for 27 years, but it's nice to have someone just remind you of some of the very basic sales skills that you need to be successful. The ability to talk to people, the ability to have systems so that you know what you're doing and how you're supposed to get it done.
That's a good segue into getting back into our intentional communication.
Absolutely.
So last week when we were talking about intentional communication, we talked about what you hear. Basically, anytime somebody's asking a question, there's a conversation going on in the back of our head. So there are 2 ways of interpreting. There's multiple ways of interpreting it, but the main 2 ways of interpreting is either we look at it from our perspective or we look at it from the perspective of the person that is asking the question. And then we got into talking versus communicating. So talking is an auto response mode versus communicating is the answer that you get. We talked about that. Again, if somebody wants to watch these videos, these are posted at remarktolive.com. So you can actually go back and you can reference all of the data that we have provided in there. And then you are responsible, so taking responsibility.
It's really important to remember that it's our job to make the conversation work, right? So if you're talking to someone and they're not answering your questions, or it's not going in the direction that you want it to go in, it's our job to be listening to their response and taking it where we want it to go. We're responsible for that, because the other person at the other end of the conversation doesn't have any idea exactly what they're hoping to say or what they want for us to say. And when you take responsibility, that means you're not just talking by accident. And it's important that you structure your conversation so that you can get some of the results that you're looking for, and as you listen through, and accept the responsibility for being able to do that. But if we back up to where we said, how's the market? Well, it depends on where you live. The market in this particular neighborhood has been strong. The last couple of months. Every month, I publish a real estate newsletter that talks a little bit about this particular area. No cost, no obligation. If you're interested in something like that, would that be useful to you? Just give me your email, and I'd be happy to give it to you. I'd be happy to send you and put you on the list. And if they start talking about something else altogether again, then you can say, okay, then they weren't interested in that. Maybe we can talk about something else, and then bring them back to another part of your sales, your sales contact information part.
So good practices, listen. I guess that's a big
Listening's a big one. Listening's a big one.
Good eye contact, calm check. Do you understand what I'm asking, or do you understand? Are you being understood? Be enthusiastic. I find myself sometimes becoming monotone, so I have to keep talking loudly. Don't talk too much or assume. Do not interrupt. Do not disengage or talk down. And then we got into intentional, so creating the intention behind every communication. So just like you were talking about your script right now with the market, how's the market doing? Your intention was to collect their contact information. So we had to turn the communication around in such a way so that they would be willing to give us the information and they saw value in it. So that was the intention behind it. So you said, well, the market is different in different neighborhoods, or there's different ways of doing it, so you can actually soften it up by saying, do you live in this neighborhood? Now you become more conversational versus market is different in different neighborhoods. I publish a newsletter that talks about the different neighborhoods in the area. Are you interested in a property in this neighborhood? Yeah, if you are, I can send it to you, no obligation, via email. What's your email address? And that way you're closing them right away. Mm-hmm. And then understanding what is being asked and what is the reply. So at the end of the day, basically, the outcome that you get is the response that you provide. That was the whole gist of communication.
Sure. So we want to try and because it's been 4 months since our last one, we want to, and because it's a new year, and because we're getting some feedback from newer agents, this year, January, we want to start off right at the beginning of how to start a conversation. And why would you want to start a conversation? Because we're salespeople, but that doesn't mean we have to be salesy, right? We don't have to try and constantly sell people. This time of year when the market's slow, probably if you go out in the street tomorrow and you should be trying to talk to at least 5 to 10 people a day. If you're doing that, you're probably not going to meet a lot of people that want to sell their house tomorrow, because this is the slowest month of the year. It just is. Statistically, you're not going to meet. It's going to be hard to meet people that want to sell their houses right now. But you still should be having conversations with those people and opening up those conversations. And this is a wonderful time to practice doing that, so that when you're at an open house when it's busy, or when you're showing property to someone, or if you're at the grocery store and someone starts talking about real estate, you get the hang of how to open up a conversation and make it comfortable for people. And there's a formula for that called FORD. FORD. And has anybody ever heard of that before? No? Okay.
All right, we could talk more about it.
So with Ford, the F is family and friends, and the O is occupation, the R is recreation, and the D is dreams. So when you talk to people, think of those 4 categories and ask them questions about that. When you meet someone, say, "Oh, how's your wife? How are the kids? How's the family?" It's nice to quiet like that. Yeah. Or occupation is occupation. How's work going? Have you started a new job? Or how's work going? Are you busy? Recreation or dreams? Or recreation is, what are you doing for fun? You guys skiing? There's been lots of snow. Are you guys skiers? What are you doing for fun? And then dreams are, what would you like to do someday? What are you hoping to accomplish this year? And those 4 categories will get people talking. And all you have to do is relax, ask them some gentle, non-salesy questions in those categories, and then listen for some kind of change. Just listen for things.
Dave, let's take a step back and let's talk more about the starting of the conversation. Okay. So how to break the ice. Because one of the big problems that a lot of times, we see this on social media, and I love it that you go to any agent's social media outlet, and all you see is, I just listed a new property, here, check out my new listing, check out this, check out that. And it seems like a lot of times when we are going to a social setting too, even though we know it's not good norm to do it, we still we still sometimes find ourselves talking more about real estate and getting more involved in it. And sometimes it actually pushes people away. So what would be some of the tips that you say would be great icebreakers? Like, why would you want to go this route?
Look for common ground. Yeah. For some kind of common ground. If you're at a party and you're meeting someone you don't know, and you don't know whether they have a wife or not, you don't want to ask those kinds of questions. You can look for some common ground, like do you know the host, or how do you know the host, or that type of thing. You know, if you're depending on what it is, if they're serving a certain kind of food, you can talk about the food a little bit. But things like just look for some common ground.
And just be genuinely interested in what they have to say rather than what you want to push out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So often have you ever been talking to someone, you know, they're just waiting for you to take a breath so they can talk next, you know, and you know, it's really off-putting. People, you'll build a lot stronger level of rapport by asking more questions than you do making more statements. There's a type of selling style called Socratic selling. Socrates was a teacher, and he taught by asking questions. He used to draw the information out of his pupils by making them think about stuff and making them making them answer his questions as opposed to lecturing to them. And if you can develop a conversational style where you meet new people and you get them to talk about themselves or things that they're interested in, they'll be more comfortable with you. They'll be more relaxed with you, and it's really a great way to break the ice and start to build some rapport and trust.
So that's a good one. So what about being in different environments? Do you think your conversation should vary a bit when you're in different environments? Let's say you're at a party versus you're meeting somebody at a grocery store or meeting somebody at an open house.
The conversation is going to be different, but
Yeah.
the strategy should be the same,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
looking, and that's why you got to be on your toes to a certain degree. You know, you got to you just can't mumble away. You've got to be organized enough in your mind that if you're in the grocery store, you can start talking about the price of food or talk about the freshness of the vegetables or something. You know, it's and as simple as that sounds, people don't do it. People just don't do it. They say, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm fine," and then pass each other. You know, and there's so many opportunities just to kindle a small relationship and build a little rapport that can lead to, you don't know where they're going to go, but it's a great way as a salesperson for you to build your confidence. Because if you do that once and you have a short conversation with a total stranger and you walk away and you go, "That was okay. That wasn't that bad." So you try it again, and that wasn't too bad either, you know. And in doing that, you start to listen and you start to practice and you start to become more confident and more comfortable. So when you try to go for those soft closes, you don't stumble on them. You're more comfortable being like speaking to someone that you don't know.
What? Sorry, lost my screen. So something to avoid when we're doing this?
Something to avoid. I try to avoid religion in sports, personally.
Why?
Well, there's just too many times that you can say the wrong thing and offend someone accidentally. And I don't care about religion in sports, so I don't want to argue with anyone about that. And I don't want anyone to get angry with me or think that I said the wrong thing about that. You know, do you have any sensitive issues that...
I would say politics.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, like politics, especially with what's going on in the U.S., like I personally, like when you were talking about before, like don't have TV, I don't follow the news that much, so half of the time I'm the one asking the question, so I'm just interested in what they have to say and just listen to them. That usually works out really well for me. I don't have an opinion about it, I guess.
Well, it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. And it seems in the world we live in today that there's a very hard... how do you say this?
We're polarized now.
Yeah. No one wants to talk to someone who disagrees with them, right? Everyone, like, it's really hard. It's really difficult to express an opposing opinion, even just to have the conversation. And I love having that kind of debate. And even like there's times around my house where I don't even talk to my wife because I know it's just going to go. It's not going to go. It's going to go to a place that I don't want to take it to. We're not going to fight about it. It's just it won't be a pleasant exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
Someone will have an opinion, and one of us, and half the time it's me, will have an opinion, and that's just the way it's supposed to be. And you got to be careful with that. You got to be very careful with that. And one of the great ways to do that is with using the Ford formula: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. And you can try it on your colleagues. When you walk in the office tomorrow and meet someone, say, "Hey, how's your wife? How are the kids doing?"
Hey, we could do that right now. Let's do a role play.
All right.
So, hey, how's the family?
Family's doing great, Addy. How was yours?
Good. Any new closings you got coming out?
Well, no, this has been January. It's been kind of slow for me, but it's, I'm optimistic.
Oh, good.
I'm optimistic. I've
Good.
got one that hasn't closed yet, but I've got one that's been kind of dragging itself. But
How's business going? Like, do you see any new leads coming in? Any new business coming in your way right now? I know January is slow. We saw a couple of leads come in, but how are you seeing the market right now?
Right now, I'm seeing the market kind of, it's where I would expect it to be for January, but it's been slower than normal, to be honest with you, and the leads haven't been very good right now.
Okay.
But I'm hoping things should get better. We got our nose to the grindstone, and we're still working away at it. How's your family doing?
Good, good, good. Just trying to stay out of trouble.
Now, do you have any holidays coming up?
Yeah, next month. I'm out for 2 weeks.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Pakistan.
No way.
Yeah, I haven't been back for like 22 years, so
Isn't that exciting?
it is very exciting.
Wowee.
Yeah,
That means you had a good year last year.
it was a good year.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can't complain.
No, good for you.
Can't
Good for you.
complain.
So it's been 22 years since you went back.
Yep.
So you must have been thinking about that for a long time.
Not really.
No.
Was trying to avoid it. Well, my wife wanted to go back, so we ended up taking
good
some
for
time
you.
off. Yeah. How about you? How about you? Any plans coming up for vacation or?
As a matter of fact, yeah, we're going to England to see my daughter.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
When are you doing that?
In April.
In April.
In April, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's good to see you.
Yeah. Good to see you too.
A conversation like that. Don't ask for an order. Don't ask for, just a nice, gentle conversation. And you can ask one question, you get like, what are you, like, are you going on a holiday? That'll lead to, you can ask one or two more questions on that topic line, and you won't be belaboring it, it'll be interesting. And he started smiling, didn't he? It just happens. And you get people talking about things that like their family. Occupation isn't always a smile, but their recreation is going to make them smile. Their dreams are going to make them smile. You're going to feel good about it. Ask them one or two questions. At the end of it, say, that's great to see you, and then walk away. Now, if you have the kind of mind, you might remember that conversation. The next time you might see them and say, oh, how was skiing? Or how was that trip to Pakistan, kind of thing, And right away, you're building rapport. And an awful lot of this, of any kind of sales, but an awful lot of real estate sales is relationship sales. Everybody knows 10 realtors, and let's face it, it's just the way it is, right? So people will call you if they don't some will call you because they have an obligation to, but people who don't have an obligation to call you will call you because they like you and they trust you and they feel that they know you. And the way to help them build that foundation is by asking them interesting questions, getting them to talk about themselves. That's the best way to start building that rapport. Ultimately, the next time, if Addy wasn't a realtor, the next time I saw Addy, I might bring a little bit of real estate in, or he might ask me about how I'm doing, right? And then right away, then I can be the person who doesn't maybe understand his question. I can introduce a little real estate into that, right? Just gently. And that's how you build the conversational rapport over time. This is a great time of year to be doing that because no one's going to want to sell their house right now. So don't even pretend they do. Don't even ask them if they do.
Yeah, one of the best quotes I heard is people will forget your name, but they won't forget how you made them feel.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it was really important to do it because when you break it all down, it's all of us are feeling based. Every single human being is feeling based. It's if you are genuinely interested in somebody and you follow up with a question about something that they had said last time, you will blow them away.
Oh, absolutely.
They will never forget you.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll just share a sales strategy that my team uses. When we sell a house, when the person's moving into the week before closing, I get a card made up and with a picture of the street, and one of my team members goes door to door to everybody on the street and says, "Hey, you're getting a new neighbor. They're moving into whatever it is, like 25 Brown Street, and we got a card to welcome them. Would you like to welcome them into the community? It's such a nice street. Would just sign your name and put down the address, your house number." And so they'll do that. Well, that's different. No one's ever asked me to do that before. And they'll write their number down and they'll put down their name. And then while they're doing that, the team member will say, "If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?" She asked the question twice, just that way. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? And the person will look and they'll just say it, whatever it might be. Hawaii, it might be right here, it could be Halifax. Who knows? She says, "Oh, wouldn't that be fun? That's great." And then take the card. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and move along. No business card. No, are you thinking about selling your house? None of that stuff. Just that's great. Move along. And then as they walk down the sidewalk, she's got a sheet of all the street addresses. That address gets Hawaii written beside it. And then go down to the next house, and where the new neighbor's moving in, We got a card to welcome to the community. Would you like to sign the card? Just put your house number down. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you like to live? And, oh, Halifax, that's great. Have a great day. Say hi to your new neighbor. Halifax. And then a week later, she'll send them a thank you card, just to, well, thanks for signing the new card, for welcoming your new neighbor. It was great to meet you that day. And wouldn't it be great when you're looking for property in Hawaii, let me know, I've got some connection, kind of thing, just as a joke, right? And that person smiled twice in that interaction with that 2-minute interaction with that real estate agent. That person smiled twice, and no one asked for an order, and they notice stuff like that. They absolutely know it. We've gotten business out of that strategy. It absolutely works. And it's because it's a slower, it's more gentle, and you're making people feel good. And it's the intentional part of the communication is getting them to sign the card, but finding that one little nugget of information from them about that's going to make them feel good, and then feeding it back to them.
Be interested rather than interesting.
Yeah.
Showing more interest in them and actually paying attention to what they're saying. That's actually, I think, it's the lost art of listening.
Yeah, and it's very basic sales. Before the internet's made it even harder because people now are so immediate, right? If you're like, how many times do you talk to someone and you think they're texting to you? They're talking in chopped language, and you're getting this like really smart, like really not smart, really quick answers, and people aren't thinking it through, and like this is almost like texting. And it's if you could turn the clock back to before that, people had to talk and people had to communicate, and that's what sales is. That's exactly what sales is. There's no question about it. And that's all that sales is. And so don't get blinded by the technology. Focus on the 4 or 5 basic steps of a conversation, and you will prosper. You'll absolutely prosper.
All right. So things to avoid? Well, we talked about that. Politics, religion, and sports. Anything else? Anything else anybody wants to add? That things to avoid when you're having conversation? No?
I think those are the 3 things.
Those are the 3 things, right? Yeah, avoid those.
They
So,
are listed like that in Mexico.
sorry?
They are listed like that. We always say that in Mexico where I come from.
Oh, in Mexico? Really?
Those 3.
Sports, don't talk about sports, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion. Oh, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Well, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent, so stay away from it.
Absolutely.
All right. So one of the main things that we were talking about it, no selling and just being a contented listener. That would be the main thing. And then, do you want to go through your market script and discuss it a little bit more, or do we want to talk about? For the Ford questions.
The Ford questions. Why don't Addy? Why don't you go talk to this guy? Why don't you guys just ask each other? No one knows each other at the table, right?
Yeah.
So, ask some Ford questions to each other. Go speak to.
Yeah,
this
I'll
guy.
talk to the deal. You guys can pair up. Ask some. Do a role play.
Oh, you can do that very well. Okay.